Hello and welcome to the Legendary Ladies podcast. This time around, we are planning on doing a pilot pod for Orphan Black. And actually, we have all three of us on this one. It's not a duo, so that's always exciting. It's a little sad. We're dedicating this episode to a listener, Pam, who Kat and I actually met. We went out for
Few
pizza.
times, yeah.
Yeah, she was so kind and thoughtful, and she wrote us in nice emails all the time, and was really a great contributor to our community. And we found out recently that she had passed away, and this was an episode that she had requested from us previously that we hadn't gotten around to. So we figured we would do an Orphan Black pilot pod in her honor.
Yeah. We actually met uh, getting pizza because Amy came to New York, she had Danino's, and she's like, I don't know if I love Danino's, and Pam's like, what do you mean you don't like Danino's?
I was like,
That's right.
me.
Yeah. So we ended up
It's
having Danino's with her, and it was just so wonderful to get to know her as a person. And then, I would see her at Prides too, and we had like a little group chat, and she'd always mention Orphan Black, so we were like, oh, we should do this pilot pod.
it's kind of wild that Pammy was with us for a long time with
Hmm.
this podcast. I remember her emails were consistent. She was a patron and would always be in our live chats, and it's just kind of surreal. Like the day that we found out, I was just kind of in shock, and then all of a sudden it struck me. I'm like, wow, like this genuinely feels like we've lost a friend. So
For sure.
this is in honor of her and in honor of all of our listeners who are our family. But this is an honor of Pammy. We're going to do an Orphan Black pilot pod, and I will probably now watch the entire series of Orphan Black. So, Pammy girl,
was
you did good.
It was interesting because I was talking to Phil, who has watched Orphan Black, and he's like, "Oh, it's a shame that you guys did a pilot pod because it's such a show that it's about the clones, and you don't really meet them all in the first
That is
episode."
really true. It's funny. So I guess just kind of to start out our discussion about Orphan Black. Um, so am I the only one who's watched past the pilot? I think is
I've
the
only watched half of the pilot because one of my friends really liked Orphan Black in college. So I remember we had like a break in between something like classes, and she was like, and my friend T, she was like, "Oh, like let's watch Orphan Black," and I was like, "Okay." And then I guess we had to go to class, and then we never finished it. Now, 10 years later, I'm
so
finished.
this okay. So this is like the most Orphan Black you've ever seen.
Yeah, and on my Amazon Prime, I bought it because there's no really place to stream it unless you have AMC Plus, which I don't have. So I was like,
Oh,
I don't need to watch it unless I'm not watching
yeah.
all those Walking Dead
It's
episodes.
hard
So
to
I
find.
don't think I need AMC. So I bought it, and I was halfway through the episode already because I guess from 10 years ago we watched it on
Oh
Amazon
my God,
Prime.
that's
That's
And
funny.
so
I had
funny.
to restart it, but
Now, Amy, is this the most Orphan Black you've seen?
Yeah, I knew that there was Tatiana Maslany, and that she got snubbed on a bunch of Emmys, and that there were clones, and that's all I know. Like
Oh,
I knew nothing. So, one of those things where at that time I was like, I don't need any more shows.
I can't. Yeah, I
2013,
can't
I
watch
was
anything
deep
else.
into like Merlin and Spartacus and Flashpoint were all finishing, and I was kind of like Canada TV'd out.
Fair. That's
Which
fair.
it's so funny. The second it opened, I was like, this is in Toronto. And this is such
Toronto.
Canada television. The lighting is different. The cinematography is different. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that they have clouds in
I was
Toronto.
gonna say a lot of overcast days,
Rain.
probably.
but she's British in the show, so like, were they
That is
trying to
correct.
be
So
I
it was
looked it
Britain?
up.
it was a joint
Okay.
production between
Okay.
like the BBC America and like another, I think, a Canadian broadcasting
Space.
company. Space something. Yeah, so that's why a lot of the actors are like, if you watch a lot of British TV, you're like, that lady, the lady from the Tudors, or like that person or that person. But you'll also get a lot of like, oh, that guy from Canada stuff.
Yep. Like, oh, I recognize him from Rookie Blue. There.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot
I
of it's
looked
a
it
lot
up.
of Canadian and UK actors.
I did watch Rookie Blue, so there you go. I watched one procedural, didn't
There
finish
we
it.
go.
I watched a good like
Oh,
3 seasons.
Rookie Blue is fantastic. It's really good. I now I want to go watch Rookie Blue again.
You know what? You never know. PilotPod, Rookie Blue. One person will watch because it's
It's
the
not a
only
great
person
pilot.
knows.
It's not as like it doesn't stand out to me. I don't know if I remember.
I only watched it
Rookie
because I
Blue
really
pilot.
like the show Reaper. That's another one. Who knows what that show is? It's like a short-lived CW show, and one of the
I was
people
about to
from there
say,
was in it.
I vaguely remember like I never watched it, but I think I remember like the commercials from
Reaper?
from Reaper when that
I
show
have
was
a
on.
Prius because of that show.
That's so funny. I remember watching the commercials. Have you ever watched commercials for something where you're like, if I watch that, I think I'd like it, but I just like don't have the time or the energy to watch this. So it was like one of those where I was like, I feel like I'd like that show. I don't have time to like that show though.
I started
So
from the pilot, so I think that's why I watched. And I watched it all the way through. It has a cliffhanger. You don't need to see more because it
twist.
does. It's 2
Oh
seasons.
no,
It
it
has a
got
cliffhanger.
canceled.
It did get canceled, and it was on the CW, so you really know no one was watching that show.
That's brutal,
Because
yeah.
it got canceled, but it was a fun show. So count the TV, great stuff.
Yeah.
So I have seen the most Orphan Black out of all of us.
Yeah, 100. You
Have you
just
seen
didn't finish
the
the last season, right?
I have seen up until the last season. I think I watched like
Ooh.
bits and pieces of the last season, but I definitely didn't make it all the way through. And it was funny because I had the Orphan Black pilot on today, and Mike ended up watching like half of it with me. And he also never finished Orphan Black. He had started it, but never finished it. And after the pilot went off, he was like, do we just drop everything that we're currently watching and just watch Orphan Black instead? And I was like, it's tempting.
I mean,
Let's
I
just
think
keep going.
this is the time. If you're going to finish that show, it's probably gonna be now.
Maybe it's
I'm game.
now. Maybe
the
it's now.
time is now.
Then you guys do you guys will do. You and Amy will do a
Ooh.
whole episode
A
on
whole
it.
season pod.
Yeah, I love Kat that you think I have that much time.
No,
right
you know what? That's true. That's true. You know
For
what?
those
In
But
6
those
to 12
listeners
months,
who don't
Amy
know.
and I will do a series
We're-
pod.
all busy right now. Kat just finished like the craziest Kickstarter that
Yes.
she's ever accomplished. How
Kat, what was
how many
the final
backers did you
number?
get?
It was like 2,200, a little over that, which is crazy.
Whoa.
I
That's
know,
a
it's
And
lot
crazy.
of backers.
You got what, 500 to 600% of what you had wanted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was $13,000 goal, and we got a little over $80,000, which is
Wow.
wild.
Freaking
Yeah.
That's
insane.
wild.
You know what?
Morgan is
We
traveling
went
all
to
over the
Atlantic
world.
City and was like, you know what? We could spend a little extra money gambling. And when we say a little extra money, we said $50 extra.
You guys
Like,
are
hey,
so
big
good with
spender.
money.
That's so funny.
Too good sometimes.
Yeah, and then Morgan's traveling all over the world for
Mhm.
like the next 2 months.
It's
Where are
just
you going?
it's just Italy, and it's just 1 month.
But it's all over Italy.
Yeah, we're just going all over Italy. We're like starting in Rome.
So
We're like
excited.
Florence, Venice, all the biggies.
And
We're gonna see.
Amy, you got
And
your
Amy-
show going on.
Amy
Yeah,
has a
I'm
show
in-
next month.
A production of Welcome to Sleepy Hollow here in San Diego, which it's really, really exciting. I get to play Katrina Van Tassel. And I was just telling the girls before, I just came off of playing Lady Macbeth. And so I went from playing like, she was an adult Lady Macbeth to having to play like a 19-year-old just into college NA girl. Like we literally had a conversation of like, no, Rachel's friends are like YA, but she's NA. And I had to watch my voice because I keep dropping into Lady Macbeth voice. And my director has to be like, Amy, you lost the voice. I'm like, right. I'm Katrina. It's just been a lot of fun. But that's in October. If anyone's in San Diego, it literally runs the entirety of October at the Oceanside Theater Company. But
That's so
all this
exciting.
is to say,
Did I tell you, Amy, that I saw Sleepy Hollow like in Sleepy Hollow a couple years ago?
Oh.
like the Tim
we were-
Burton one?
No, I saw like a production of Sleepy Hollow, like the Irving story, but like in Sleepy Hollow, New York.
That's
like,
pretty cool.
In Tarrytown, New York. And we were
That's
about
cool.
halfway through the show, and there was like thunder and lightning, which I thought was very atmospheric, but
That's
which
cool.
the people thought because it was outside was dangerous. So I still have not seen the whole show. It's too bad. It's too bad I can't see your version and finally have seen the full production.
Ours is ours leaves you like it's one of those things where it ends not on a cliffhanger, but it ends on a choose your own ending. Like you can
Exciting.
decide based on the clues presented how you think their story ends. And
I
so
like that.
I know how I think the story ends. incidentally, the director and I do not agree, and she's a friend of mine, so we've been having fun joking around with that. But do Katrina, I'm not gonna say anything. Y'all gotta come see it.
Don't spoil it.
But all this is to say, we're really busy. We're not gonna have any time to watch Orphan Black anytime soon. But man, we watched this one episode.
We're not gonna. We don't have time to mainline this show right now exactly. But you know what really shook me up is realizing that this show is 10 years old. Like the pilot of this show is 10 years old.
You saw the phones, and that's kind of what brought me into.
The phone
I was like, oh yeah,
I saw
BlackBerry.
The phone went, uh-oh. And then I looked up, and it premiered March 30th, 2013. So it's like over 10 years old now. And it ended after 5 seasons in 2017.
Okay.
So so the end wasn't that long ago, I guess, but the beginning
5 years
was. Yeah. Oh, I was like 10. This show is 10 years old. Oh no.
And
Like,
it looked it, honestly. It looked it a bit, not a bad way. It just, I think shows who want to stay for a long time shouldn't show any technology, really. They should just may avoid phones altogether, because it really, I guess
it does date it. Like I was watching some clip on I don't know, like on Instagram or something of like a Gossip Girl, and those old flip phones that they pulled out. I was like, oh, this show now looks like it's like 110 years old. Yeah, the Envy where you could flip it up.
It's also,
I do think it places it in a period of time.
Yes,
true.
Like it's
and it
modern
does have that
day
Canada sense, and I feel like Canada television at that time, this was not NBC, this was not CW, this was the writing is amazing, the acting is amazing, but maybe the cinematography is not. The budget. That's the word I'm looking for. The budget is Canada budget.
The funny thing is that I know neither of you guys have watched more of the show, which is funny to whoever told you that. I think, is it Phil Cat that told you yeah, when you get more than one episode in, there's way more clones. And
he's also not finished the show. I don't think he finished it
no
either.
One has. No one here has, but when you get more into the series, when there's more clones talking to each other at once, the technology is pretty seamless. It doesn't look like it's green screened in a cheesy way or anything like that. They do a good job where you're okay, I believe that these are two separate characters talking to each other. It's not like the performance is obviously amazing. Everybody talks about Tatiana Maslany, but the technology is not taking me out of it, which I think, is pretty impressive for the probably $10 budget that they had for the show.
Yeah, really for sure. They focus on the acting for sure a lot. I heard that also when the show goes on, it gets even more sciencey. It gets more a lot more about
I'm
science.
Sure I will love. I don't know if you will.
That's why I was like, Amy Morgan, you'll one day do an episode. Maybe not anytime soon, but
we didn't even get to the queer parts of the show, Kat. You have to.
I know.
You have to commit to at least season 1 to get to the big queer romance.
Oh man, maybe I'll watch a clip of the queer romance and then see am I in or am I out?
The Cosima clips and everything to get the.
I know that's
the
the big deal of the show is that romance.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess let's go around to initial thoughts. So we talked about our backgrounds with the show. Only I have watched more than one episode. So this is interesting because for some reason I thought at least one of you had watched a bit of season 1 or all of season 1. So Kat, what were your initial thoughts on the pilot?
The same I kind of had 10 years ago. I remember being I understand, and this was when the height of that show, when people were everyone was talking about that show. And I remember my friends gotta go watch it, like I said. And I remember saying, I understand why you like this show. It's great acting. There's some interesting concepts because of the whole clone idea, but is it a cat show? No. Because it's so, especially if I hear that it's going to get even more sci-fi. But as I was watching, it got a little too convoluted for me, and that's episode 1. Where you're okay, so she's dead, right? And there's only there's technically 3 clones, but there's really only 2 you got to follow.
When you get to a lot more clones, it's going to get more convoluted. It's weird because I do take that there are, I guess, a lot of technology. There is some technology, sci-fi elements to it, but I would say that kind of overall to me, the show is more of a character study about these the main 3 clones are Sarah, Cosima, who is the one who has the queer romance, and Allison, who's like the really uptight one.
Okay.
And I feel like it's more like there's the character stuff to me is like the things that I remember a little bit more than
But they
the
don't really interact here because they can't.
they don't interact
Yeah.
in this episode, but they do start interacting, I think, in like episodes 2 and 3. Like by I'd say episode 2 or 3 in season 1, I think you probably should have been introduced to like all the 3 main characters,
When she
which are
started
all
taking over
Tatiana
her life,
Maslany.
when she started taking over her life, that's when I started getting a little convoluted. I'm like, wait, so she's
You're
a
like,
drug
oh, wait.
dealer, and now she's taking over this girl's life of a police officer. I'm like, I don't know. And it happened so quickly. She was just so into it. She's like, she didn't care that there's someone that looks exactly like her. She's like, okay, let me try to use this as my advantage.
She jumped to thievery pretty quickly, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she's an opportunistic, like right off the
She
bat,
is.
you learn that she's opportunistic. And I think that that's good. It's interesting because you say it was convoluted. For me, because I knew about all the clones, like even if you don't know the story, you know about the clones.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's
you know, like the
hard to
basic.
watch the pilot and be like, okay, I'm here to judge or like
See what's going on,
you
yeah.
know, judge the pilot when you already kind of know what's going on. You're like, oh, these are all birth certificates. This other girl was clearly investigating all her clones, and oh my god, she's discovered that like she has them and that's too much to handle. She's gonna jump in front of the train, and oh my god, what if her clones just showed up? Like how weird. I didn't particularly find it convoluted, but that might be because I'm the kind of person that watches 12 Monkeys and
Yeah, you like
Fringe.
sci-fi.
Like this is my
Yeah.
jam kind of a
Yeah.
thing. I like
will say,
seeing
I
her, like,
remember-
in those situations.
I remember watching the pilot, like, I guess a long time ago now. I think when I jumped on, like, at least full season 1 had come out, and I went in without knowing anything about it. People were just like,
Oh.
Orphan Black is so great. And I was like, oh, I don't know
How
what
did you
this
get
show
away
is.
with that?
I think it was like pretty early. Like I don't think that the show got a lot of buzz until like the end of season 1, beginning of season 2. And so I was like, oh yeah, no, I really want to find out what this show is about. Everybody loves it. Like, let me just watch it. And I decided to go in like blind. So I think it was like, for me at least, like the pilot was a little bit more exciting the first time I watched it, because it is like, what's going on? Why does that girl look just like her? Like, why does she have all these birth certificates? Meanwhile, like going in here the second time knowing that the whole show is about clones, like spoiler alert, yeah, exactly, you're like, oh, okay, because it's the clones birth certificates.
We do have a couple of comments from New Rachel, so I'm going to read them. New Rachel says, New Rachel is a patron, so if you want to be part of our Patreon, you get to watch our episodes live, and sometimes we bank these episodes, so you get it way in advance, and we're actually doing that tonight. We have another episode that we're banking, so you get to watch that in advance, which we'll put in the comments for our patrons so they could get to see that. But yeah, New Rachel says, I jumped on board between season 2 and 3 because one of my friends kept talking about it, so they jumped on board a little later. They also said this show's opening scene is one that I still remember, with Sarah waking up on the train and the slow build up of seeing Beth at the train station and recognizing they have the same face. Yeah, that opener was really, really good. I was like, oh wow, I could see like why people might have been grabbed with that first scene. It's a great first scene.
So from a writing perspective, that's one of the first things I thought of Kat. So I was like, I bet you Kat appreciates this teaser and appreciates the writing of it. So like if we're analyzing the writing and we're analyzing what a pilot needs to get done successfully, you got to introduce us to the main characters. Obviously this is a challenge when the main characters are all kind of sort of the same person, but not.
Yeah.
My question for you is, did this feel like a pilot? Because for me felt a little bit like a streaming pilot.
Yeah.
It did not feel like a network pilot. I don't know if I would have been like it felt like the pacing was really, really, really even, and then boom, they had all the big stuff right at the end, which I guess is what a pilot is supposed to do, like hook you. But it almost needed another 2 minutes at the end. It was almost too cliffhangery for me.
That's fair. I would say that like the structure of this pilot was like bang, bang. Like the big stuff happens really quickly at the front end of the pilot, and then the big stuff happens, and then some big stuff happens at the very end of the pilot, and you're just like, what? And then in the middle it is a lot of like, what's happening?
Oh, she's now taking over her life. That's interesting. Yeah, no,
I thought that was cool. I thought
that
that
one
the best part. I'm sorry, but you guys know me. I love me my spicy. The part where she's like, "Oh my god, this husband, he's getting suspicious. Let's bang him." That'll work.
I was
my first thought though. I was like, what if she has a tattoo? Like, how?
Oh,
isn't it going to be obvious that her like style is a little different, or is he just going to be like, wow, girl, you learned some stuff?
I was honestly shocked that they had that much nudity in like a BBC America show. I was like,
I guess they're allowed
"Oh,
to.
okay, sure. We're just doing this then, huh?"
Yeah, no, I was surprised by that too. I didn't know that about the show. I was like, "Oh, wow, you can show butts in this show."
Yeah, there's
Um,
some butts in this show, huh?
but going back to the question of, is it like a pilot? Yeah, it's not a standard. It's definitely not a network pilot. We'll say that. But also doesn't feel like The Sopranos either. You know, it just feels like almost a precursor to streaming, which I think around this
It
time Orange is
kind
the New
of
Black did
was.
come out. Orange is the New Black came out. I want to say the same year.
I feel like it kind of was where it was
Did
like it
2013?
it wasn't a streaming pilot in that, like, there was, like, some stuff that happened, and you could kind of be like, "Okay, this is" it wasn't kind of like the slow pace that some of the streaming pilots have, but it also wasn't a network pilot where it's, like, at the end of the pilot, I'm like, "Okay, I know what this show is about." I think it was, like, more of a like a basic cable pilot. This was sort of like
Mm.
the time period when basic cable was like
Mad
TV had
Men.
its, like, golden age. It was AMC, it was Mad Men, there was, like, Justified, there was Orphan Black, all of these shows were kind of on at the same time. So they were like they weren't quite the short streaming seasons yet, but they were shorter seasons. I think they were like 12 episodes instead of like 22 like it used to be. So the storytelling was like a little bit truncated. But I wouldn't say that this is like it didn't remind me of being like a full like streaming pilot because it did feel like more stuff happened in this one than would happen in a streaming pilot. In a streaming pilot, it would have taken the whole episode for Beth to jump in front of the train.
Yeah, yeah,
Y-
100%.
yes. I I think ultimately this, I mean, right off the bat, it hooked me. I'm intrigued. I'm here for the characters. I kind of love this girl who seems like she's clever enough to literally just figure stuff out. Like, she's clearly very good at getting out of situations that she's been put into. Like, she's like, oh, they're about to interrogate me. Let me drink some soap.
The drinking the soap. Classic.
Ew,
Classic.
it
I
was
was like,
really
"Oh, that's
gross.
so gross." I
I know,
also
I
like
was
that,
like, that's
like,
disgusting.
she sees somebody who looks just like her jump in front of a train and, like, her first instinct is just to grab the bag. Like, I that's not where I would have went.
No.
I would have certainly been too traumatized to be grabbing any bags,
Yeah.
but she was like, "This could be an answer to some problems of mine."
Yeah, there's just like no but that kind of goes to the point of what Amy was saying, like, oh, that's what intrigued you. She was a very different type of character. But it's like, oh man, I kind of wish she like dealt with her feelings a little bit more. Like those are the type of characters I like more of someone who's just like sitting with the feels. And obviously that show doesn't want that. It's just like, yeah, let's just make her steal some money.
I
What's her next thing with her next cocaine.
And
I guess she
I think you can get, like, without getting her full backstory, I think the pilot gives you a good idea of, like, how, like, she has messed up,
they
probably
mention her
several
daughter a
times.
lot.
Yeah, her daughter,
mhm.
but we don't know the full backstory of, like, who her daughter is with or anything like that, but we do know that, like, she abandoned essentially her daughter for, the better part of a year and her friends. So, we know that she's, like, coming back from essentially, like, a bad run.
Right.
You know, now that I think about it, like, that really, you want to compare to some other pilots. Like, it really is incredibly well done how much you learn about Sarah right
Mhm.
off, like, very quickly. Like, from this
Without
pilot, you know a
exposition.
With
whole lot.
yeah,
Exactly.
without all
Without her
the
saying,
part being
you
like,
know, yeah,
"Mm-mm."
I was a drug addict and went to rehab and lost my daughter. You
Yeah.
can figure it out, or maybe you figure it out enough, and then you can let the blanks fill out later. Like, she can clearly think on her feet. She's the kind of girl that probably has never actually had a home to herself. Everything about her is really well established very quickly, and I know that that's going to be fun leading into more because she's kind of an anti-hero. I don't know if I necessarily consider her a good person.
Yeah, no, I think definitely an anti-hero. Like she spends most of the episode trying to steal a dead woman's money, uh, and
Yeah.
trying to like, she's not forthcoming with any of this poor woman's like loved ones who think that she is Beth, and like obviously she's pretending to be this person who is dead, and they don't even know. I mean, I don't think Sarah in this episode is a good person for for sure. But I do think that like the economy of storytelling where they don't have like a lot of exposition but you still get a very good idea of who this character is. I would say the only scene in the pilot that is very like piloty and exposition-y is right at the end with Katja, who is like, "You are a cop, right? You are a cop. You have my birth certificate because of this. You need to go talk to your friend." It's like I can understand, but it's also like, would you, if you thought you were talking to somebody who knew all this information, would you say it? Or would you just be like, "What are you talking about? Like we talked about this."
Well, I want to know if they meant in like an, I know we'll learn it, like an online chat room or something, like the cloneacademy.com or like clones missing. I don't know, clones anonymous. CA.
I think I think back in the day, the social media hashtag for Orphan Black used to be like Clone Club. Hashtag
Was it
Clone
really?
Club. I think so. Yeah.
Back in the Twitter
Club.
day where
That's what
people able to watch TV together.
Yeah, that's what the Wikipedia says too. So the Wikipedia backed me up that it was called Clone Club.
That's fun.
Maybe
It's
that's why they
interesting
found
an Instagram called Clone Club. They have Clone Club.
Clone.
For
They
this,
have
I'm guessing.
945 followers. But that's it's
Okay.
a fan account. Okay.
Good for them.
Yeah, that was like, oh, great. I'm glad they're keeping the Clone Club alive. But I think that's an interesting part too. Is like, as much as I don't like this, interested to see like why do these clones exist? If we ever get the answer for that, are there other clones? Other people have clones? Probably not. But because we only really hear about the right. But yeah, so those are interesting. Like that's one thing I think this pilot does a really good job at. It's like, well, here's this really interesting concept. You could kind of do maybe even 10 seasons of this, but they did the 5 and somehow messed up the 5th one supposedly.
I would know having only watched a little bit of it. My memories are very hazy about seasons like 4 and 5.
You know more than any of us do. Like,
That's true.
You really do know the things.
I'm trying not to give anything away because Amy might watch more. So
I will. I do. And a lot of it might have to do with the fact that one guy has a really nice butt.
Listen, I'm not judging.
But
this could be a good opportunity to talk about the characters. So yes, we're introduced not to all of our main characters for the show in this pilot, but to a good amount of them. Not all. We don't get some of the more important clones, but we're introduced to Sarah and her ex-boyfriend Vic. And her,
he seems important. He seems like we're gonna be in a lot of.
He does seem like he's gonna be a recurring person.
And then he also seems like he might be a fan favorite because he seems like they really make him like unlikable here, but it's like, is he gonna grow?
He's also like, can I eat this apple?
Can I eat the apple? Oh my god! And then obviously Felix, who's her foster brother, and then Amy's description of him in the doc is amazing. It just says hot ass man who is Paul, who is Beth's boyfriend.
I didn't remember his name. But I just wrote down the characters as I remembered it, and you didn't read it all, Morgan. It says hot ass man.
Hot ass man. I put in parentheses Paul, LOL, and then obviously Art, who is as you described him, Amy, detective dude. That was Beth's like partner, like detective partner.
I really should write like Twitter bios for every character that we see in pilot pods, because this is how I organize them. I was like, oh, wait, Rachel says Paul's actor is on Arrow. I thought his abs looked familiar.
Amy's like, I'd recognize those abs anywhere.
And guess what? They're Canadian as well.
That's true.
That is true.
That should have been a giveaway.
I literally looked him up like, are you in Ricky Blue?
Let's find out.
Dylan Bruce. Definitely followed him on Instagram. No, but okay, so here's the thing. I actually
He was in Heroes Reborn.
Was he?
And he was in he was Adam Donner from Arrow. Who the hell was that?
I don't know.
I did not make it that far in Arrow.
He's a fictional lawyer. He's just a lawyer.
I
don't know if he was that important.
That's fun. A fictional lawyer. It had to have been like the later seasons, right?
Yeah, I think it was like season 5, if I had to guess.
I like that we get clued in right away that maybe he knows more than we think he does, because he very clearly was like, something's different. And she's like, no, it's fine. He's like, your hair is literally longer.
I like when she tried to play it off by saying she got a haircut, and he said, it looks longer.
Longer. And I do like the fact that she's like, you're a guy. I can distract you with sex. But I am very surprised that he did not pick up anything. Yeah, like
he was just like, sure,
maybe not this episode.
yeah, but
I want to know.
Maybe
I want to know how much he knows, because I have a feeling that he knows more than he's letting on. Who I don't understand in this episode is Art, the detective dude. I could do without him. Like, are we a friend? Are we not? Are we a partner? Are we what is our purpose here?
Well, he seems to be figuring out stuff too. But you know, Morgan, you reminded me in you know, what's her face, Beth? Who's the one who died in the
Beth.
Okay, Beth. She was kind of figuring out the clone situation, so that doesn't mean her partner wasn't. Maybe she was talking to him, being like, "Oh, this is happening," you know?
Yeah, we don't know what the detective partner knows and doesn't know. He does seem to be onto something, that like she's acting weird and different, and he's following her. But we don't know. Yeah, we don't know how much he knows about the clone situation.
Which they do a good job with this pilot to do that, because they leave you enough questions where you're like, oh, I want to like kind of see where that's going. But you know, I think they do a good job in that regard.
So I see a comment from Rachel in the chat. So this might be a kind of a moot point, because you guys might already know the names of the other clones. But Rachel said, I'd like you to guess names and personalities of some other clones. So we know that there's going to be other clones.
Any of them.
Okay. We know that there's going to be other clones that pop up. So say you had to guess the names and personalities of 3 clones. What would you guess?
I have no idea. Here, why don't you give me names?
Okay.
And I'll come up with a personality.
Okay, good. Allison.
You said she was like a stuck-up girl. Like she sounds like she's like a she sounds very like snooty, like push up her glasses. Like, these are my rules. I go to school and then I come home and I take care of my dog.
I was gonna say creepy, but
Amy is closer. She's like a very uptight housewife kind of character.
Does she have kids?
She does have kids.
Ooh, okay. So this
do
is
they all
interesting
look
from
like
a
her
scientific
too?
point of view.
They don't.
The fact that the clones can reproduce.
I feel like, I will say, I don't remember this, and I would have to rewatch. I think the kids might have been adopted.
Okay.
So I can't remember if they were like her biological children or her adopted children. I just know that she has children. The kids are adopted. Rachel confirms in the chat. Okay, spoilers. So that's Allison. Casima. What do we think?
She's the one who is gay, right?
Yes.
Gay.
I know that she's like from what it looks like, she looks like a scientist, right? Okay.
Oh, she's not Dreadlocks girl.
She is Dreadlocks girl.
She is Dreadlocks girl.
It's so funny that we're talking about Orphan Black and I'm pretending like I wasn't really into the show. So here's my Funko figure of Casima that sits on my desk every day.
Still haven't finished the show, but you do have.
Okay, now
never finished the show, but was a super fan of the show at one point. But yeah, she had like the dreads, and she has like her little coat on. This means nothing to people who are audio only. I'm just holding up the Casima Funko Pop. But basically, she's like a little scientist, and she's very sciencey and very, very like
Science
sort of thoughtful. Yes.
I don't know if I'd like her because she's all sciencey. You said that's going to sell me on the show.
But I feel like she's a great character. Even though she likes science, Cat. Even though she has that big check mark against her.
Yeah, if you're in a medieval time or you're a scientist, I just don't know I'm going to be a fan.
Rachel said, "Did you ever see the as a lesbian ... supporter meme? That's her." I actually have not seen this meme. I am behind on the memes. And then the last. So sometimes additional clones will pop up, but I'd say that these, like the ones that I'm saying, are like the major ones. So Helena.
I definitely thought Katya was a major character, and then all of a sudden she was dead, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. When we were watching, Mike goes, "Which one was Katya?" And I was like, "Don't worry about her." I remembered that much. I was like, "Don't worry about it."
What was the last one?
The last one
I'm looking at the Orphan Black meme as a lesbian supporter. The shirt says "Elect Allison Hendry," though. Isn't that the other clone?
Yeah.
Oh, so I guess interesting things happen there because she's the whatever her name is, the scientist character who's wearing that, or is Allison wearing that?
Um, no, it should be Cosima, I would say.
So
But
Casima's wearing a shirt of a character that she
oh, as a
looks like.
lesbian support. Oh, so
God
they
bless
would
Rachel.
they would
Rachel in
okay.
this chat, man.
It's Cosima pretending to be Allison. That's right. Because
Got
I
ya.
do remember,
Okay.
like, so one of the funny things is that sometimes the clones will have to pretend to be the other clones. So now Tatiana Maslany is pretending to be one clone, pretending to be another clone,
Great.
like unsuccessfully. So uh, that should be a testament to how good she is in the role. Is that like you can always tell, like, oh, it's like Allison pretending to be Cosima, but she's doing a bad job, because
Okay.
the clones like personalities are so well defined that it is like it's not confusing, it's funny. But again, that all goes to Tatiana Maslany, who is like really next level in how good she is. So Rachel says the main five are Sarah, Allison, Cosima, Helena, and another one you haven't named. So what do we think Helena's personality is like?
Helena sounds like a book nerd.
She is.
I think she's evil.
No, wait, she's a chef. She's
Cat's
evil.
right.
Oh,
Cat's
there you
right.
go. Because no one else has been evil yet. So
She's
you
not
go.
so I don't want to give too much away, but she has a very like interesting backstory. But she is, especially in season 1, kind of a villain. So Rachel says there's one I'm missing that I have honestly no idea who that could possibly be. Unless
does it
it's
include Beth?
I feel like after season 1, like the Beth isn't a huge like presence on the show, sort of
oh
like season
really?
1. Yeah, is like where
She's
there's like
so much of a presence in this season.
yeah, season 1 is like the biggest Beth season, I would argue. Although I could be wrong, as we have established, I don't remember as much about this show as I thought I did.
But you're a super fan.
It's been 10 years, apparently, somehow. So yeah, so I don't remember who the last main clone character is. If anybody does, tweet us.
So
yeah.
my question to you, Kat, is like we're joking, like this is like not necessarily your jam, but given what we know about how well they established this one character just in this very short amount of time, would you watch this continuing with the show if you had time? Like, would this be something where you'd give it another 2 or 3 episodes before you decided whether or not you'd stick on board?
Honestly, probably not. I think it really was too sciencey for me. Even if I had enough time.
It wasn't
like
even
when
sciencey.
There was not even any science.
No science.
No,
There was
because too
literally
much
more
clone-
sex than
clone.
science.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. I just Rachel reminded me. Yes, okay, there is another clone. Her name is Rachel. I cannot believe I forgot this character. She actually is a very major character. So yeah, there is another clone. Although I don't does Rachel show up in the first season is a good question.
Well,
Doesn't
Rachel
show
or
up
new
in this
Rachel?
episode.
She doesn't
there
show
you
up in
go.
this one. Old Rachel and new Rachel. This is new Rachel from Orphan Black. But yeah, Kat, I don't think this is that sciencey. So it's funny that you mentioned that. Right before
we'll go to the sciencey part after. And
yeah, right before we all hopped on, I was on the Orphan Black Wikipedia page, and apparently in 2019 they reported there was going to be a new series set in the Orphan Black universe that was in early development stages at AMC. And then it said it was announced in April 2022 that the series was greenlit, and it was titled Orphan Black Echoes, and it was scheduled for a 2023 premiere on AMC and AMC Plus. And then in July 2022, Kristen Ritter was cast in the lead role of Lucy, but I have heard almost nothing since then.
Yeah, that's why I thought there was something going on with it, but obviously things are happening.
I wonder if it's I would think that maybe their whole, even if they have maybe even if they've shot it, they might just be holding on to it because, who knows when new content's going to be. So they need to like stagger things out now more.
Going back to my science comment.
Hey, writers.
Oh yeah,
and
pay your writers, please. Let's make, let's have the strike end in a positive light so we can get television, also money for writers and money for actors. but yeah, going back to why I wouldn't watch it. I don't know. There's something about that middle that it just didn't grab me. I I feel like if I watch a pilot of something, like I know if I'm gonna love it. You know, like I think a good
That's fair.
example. I've been watching the morning show. It's like a show I've been watching with my family though, so we're watching it very slowly. So like every freaking 2 weeks we get to watch an episode. But like when I watched that, I was like, oh, what I really like about this is that it's about journalism, something I'm very very interested in. And I like that these characters are very complex, and it's really about like all their relationships. So I think with Orphan Black, like I like that the relationships were complex, but you don't really get to see them interact at
Mm.
all. So it didn't sell me on like, oh, I know the relationships are going to be complex, but also I know that no one likes the ending of this show and that it gets even more
Oh, I didn't know
convoluted.
that.
Well,
I will say I think that there is a week season, and I couldn't tell you which one it was because I don't
Someone in
remember.
our Twitter said that it was the final season. It was season
Okay,
5.
final season. So I thought I remember I think thinking that like I like season 4, the parts of season 4 weren't my favorite, which is probably why I never like made it all the way through season 5, but I will say that like I think it's really strong for a couple of seasons and then it kind of gets wobbly. I Rachel also pointed out that there's an audio drama sequel series that's on Spotify, if
interesting.
people are so interested, and
That's
corrected me that the Rachel character is in the end of season 1. She's introduced in the finale and a big part of the rest of the series. I thought that she
oh,
like didn't pop up until the end of season 1, so I was around there.
I think it is a bummer to know that the show drops off. It's kind of like when someone says watch Lost, and you're
Right.
like, yeah, but everybody says season 6 is not great.
But at least that was
Whereas,
like a cultural phenomenon, so you feel like you're a
yeah,
part of something when you watch that. It's like,
that's
oh
true. That's
wow,
true. But
people
I
like,
feel like Orphan Black
yeah.
had a huge following though.
It
But
did,
It did,
yeah.
but
some
like
shows,
Lost is like you're learning about like TV history in a way. Orphan Black is like, oh
That's
yeah, people
true.
like that show, you know?
I guess that makes sense. It is a bummer to know that they weren't able to quote save
Mm.
themselves. Like there's some shows like Fringe, season 1, 2, and 3 are good. Season 4 is arguably just kind of I don't even remember season 4, and then season 5 is a shortened season, but it packs a wallop. And so it's nice to be like you can stick around with that, or Legends of Tomorrow, stick around. It's going to continue to be good. It's hard to
And
ask
even though it
someone
ended on a cliffhanger, Legends of Tomorrow, it's like, oh no, like
Yeah.
the ride was fun enough
so
that it doesn't
amazing.
matter.
Exactly.
Legends
It is
RIP.
sad to know that like this is a show that maybe yes I would want to commit to, but it doesn't end great, and
Hmm.
that is a bummer.
Yeah, that is a bummer. I will say, yeah, the a lot of shows will go in that like it'll be really good and then it'll get less good and less good and less good. And
A lot of shows.
it's very rare that like once they start getting less good, they can like turn it around and pull out of that like downward spiral. I feel like Legends did it cuz they had like
But
they had like their one like medium
well, like
season.
season 5 was kind of crummy. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, and then, like, they, like, came back out of it, and they're like, "Okay, we're going in a different way." Um, so, Rachel says, I loved season 4. I think that's my favorite after season 1. If you wanna know more about Beth, season 4 is for you." Okay, so, yeah, maybe season 3 is the one I was thinking about that wasn't so great. They did try to, do a couple of things later in the show to take some of the take some of the stress off of Tatiana Maslany since she was all of the characters essentially on the entire television show, and I felt like it was, like, a little bit less successful than I would like. I was like, I understood why they were doing it, but I was, like, also like, all I really wanna see is, like, more Tatiana Maslany. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that means that her work days probably suck.
Definitely.
So we've talked about whether or not any all of us would watch the rest of the series. Um, I guess we can't really answer this. Maybe Morgan can. Is the pilot indicative of the rest of the series?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say like yes and no in that like I think the pilot establishes that like things are going to be crazy and there's going to be like high stakes and that the characters are going to be pretty good and like well-rounded. But I do feel like it does become a different show once the clones all find each other and are together because so much of what makes the show so great is the way that the different characters, the Tatiana Maslany clone characters, like play off of each other and bounce off of each other, which you actually don't get in the pilot. So I
Yeah.
think
Right.
the reason people still talk about Orphan Black is mostly not that it wasn't a great show or that it wasn't really well written, because it was, but it's mostly Tatiana Maslany. Like, I would be watching scenes going like, or I would like go to Comic-Con and be like, oh, I can't wait to see Tatiana Maslany. I wish like that the Cosima actress would be there. And then I go, oh, because that is her, because it's also Tatiana Maslany. Like,
Yeah.
she disappeared into those different roles and was so wholly a different person that you could be like, oh, I can't believe that those two had scenes together. And then you're like, oh no, because that's Allison.
The
She's
same.
also Allison
That's
too.
wild.
Like, it'd be funny. I would see her, like Tatiana Maslany, with like different people from different storylines and be like, right, because she's that one too, and she's that one, and she's that one. So without being able to see a lot of the different clones like interacting with each other, you don't really get the scope of like how crazy good her acting is. And I think for Amy, for you, you're gonna really love it when you start to get to like Cosima showing up, Allison showing up, Helena showing up, like all of these different characters who are so different, but also like completely believable as like these independent people. And especially when they're like talking to each other in a scene, she does like, they seem like two different people who are interacting, not like one actress jumping back and forth.
I'm really and how that changes the characters that you're trying to create, but that to me is gonna be really fun. I'm genuinely excited. I don't know when I'm gonna have time to watch this show, but
Yeah.
I am
At some point.
game for it. I have so many shows to watch, except pay your writers. We don't have anything to watch right now, so
yeah,
I have
It's a
been
lot of reality
rewatching
television.
Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Like,
Not the Golden
all of
Bachelor?
not the Golden Bachelor. How dare you? Oh, that's right. Amy wasn't here
you
for
weren't
a
on that one.
long discussion about the Golden Bachelor. Did we do that during the League of Their Own pilot?
I think so. Somehow we got there.
It's basically The Bachelor, but he's old. That's the whole thing. It's The Bachelor, but he's old.
The Golden Bachelor.
He's the Golden Bachelor.
So you have to watch
Oh,
that.
gosh.
Obviously, that should be high up on your priority list.
Wait, this is real.
No, it's
Yes.
real. Yeah, it's not like a. It's.
Oh, I thought you guys made this up.
No,
this is
no,
real.
This is a
It sounds
real
like
show.
a thing that would be on 30 Rock, but it's real for sure. Like a 30 Rock joke.
I thought you guys just came up with
Nope.
this, like
Nope.
just as like a fun
This is
joke.
a real show.
I like that. Like the longer we go on, the more as a society we just turn 30 Rock background jokes into real TV
Reality, for sure.
shows. It was like
Oh,
MILF
look at
Island
this
was like
guy.
real.
He just wants to find love.
He just wants to find
He
love.
does. He's definitely rich.
Are they all like? Do they have kids?
We don't know. That's the one thing I'm very interested in
He
seeing.
has a granddaughter.
know.
I watched
He has
like
a granddaughter.
I saw a TikTok and she was like, I want to tell you about my
They're
grandpa.
all at least 60 years old. Hot damn, they all look freaking great for being over 60.
Good for them.
I'm sorry, this is not relevant. We were gonna, you know what? This will be a Patreon. We'll talk about this later.
We'll talk about the Golden Bachelor later for sure.
Oh
later
yeah,
for sure. But
the only thing we can all agree that we're gonna watch.
the point
Yes.
behind this is that at some point I intend to watch Orphan Black now. At
Nice.
least the first season, just so I can appreciate the joy in it, and I can already tell that it's going to be something where I'm going to enjoy solving the science mystery part of things. Yeah, so I'm game. This should be fun. Kat will not be, but that's okay.
Kat, probably not for Kat. Maybe she'll look up those Cosima scenes.
I think I'd do that. Yeah, I'd do that first, and if I really
That's
like
fair.
it, then
I'm
then I'll
sure
just
that
watch
there
her
are YouTube
episodes.
compilations of them.
Oh, there
I'm
absolutely
sure,
are. Yeah,
yeah.
they were a big couple back in the day. The day being, I guess, like 10 years ago, which still blows my mind. Like that 2013 was that long ago.
I know.
It's not right. It's not right. Let's see. Anything else that we want to talk about with Orphan Black before we like move on?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah, it is kind of a shame that you don't get the other really important characters in the pilot. So like there's so much I feel like to talk about with the different different characters and like how Tatiana Maslany does all that stuff. But in the pilot, we really only get Beth and Sarah and Kaja for a second before, R.I.P.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 of them die.
Yeah, not great odds for the clones for sure. So
But I think,
I think
I'm game.
I think
I'll
that's
watch
gonna
more.
nice. So when you do watch more, Amy, you need to text me and let me know what you think, and eventually in a year or 2, we'll do our series pod on Orphan Black.
I'm excited for you guys.
It'll be great. I think that's gonna do it for our discussion on Orphan Black. But as always, send us in what pilots you want to see us talk about and cover. And let's go around and see what everybody has got going on. Amy, what about you?
You all can find me on Instagram, Amy_hip, HYP. I am in Welcome to Sleepy Hollow. It is a musical adaptation of Sleepy Hollow. It's an original musical written by a local. It has been performed a handful of times. The first time in 2001, I was in it as a kid. And so now I am actually able to play Katrina Van Tassel in it, which is really, really, really cool. The writer is still involved. The producer was in the original production. Like, this is just such a full circle show. It is going to be running October 6th through 29th. Most weekend nights, plus some Thursdays, plus some matinees. So it's great. I'm not sleeping in October, but that's okay, because it is fun. And our cast is really very talented. Honestly, all of the dad characters, they're going to steal the show. Like, there's one scene where all the dads from town, and we cast age appropriate, and all the dads they're like all drunk in the tavern, and Ichabod Crane's like, you were singing a drinking song, but it didn't rhyme. That doesn't make sense. And they're like, just have a couple more beers, then it will. And it's, oh my God, they're like rolling around the stage. It's going to be so funny. And we've got like a little kid, a bunch of kids. But one of them, Jordan, is playing a character named Jonathan, who my brother played when we were in it.
That's so funny.
So wild. But like this kid is spectacular. Like, she's got such good comedic timing for being 10 years old. It's
awesome.
Just, it's going to be a really, really solid production. So I'm really excited. So yeah, if you guys are interested, Oceanside Theater Company, you can just search oceansidetheatercompany.org, but it's spelled theater like the Brits theatre. So oceansidetheatrecompany.com.
Nice. And Kat, what about you? Any other Kickstarters coming up? Anything
there
exciting?
is, as always, in the next couple
of
weeks.
There is.
There always is. And we always do a 2-week gap between Kickstarters. We have these 2 weeks. But yeah, we have the Dancers last issue coming out, so go check that out. That's going to be in September 18th, I think. We're also opening up submissions for our trans anthology. So if you guys want to submit to that, it's opportunity for paid work. Definitely go ahead for that. And I'm sure there's other things that I'm forgetting about, but go follow me on Twitter at Comic Uno. That's where you'll find most of the stuff.
That sounds really exciting. And hopefully the next one does just as well as the last one.
Hopefully. I don't know if we'll make those numbers, but if it does half as well, I'd be happy.
I had a really fun time every couple of days checking and seeing what the number was now. I was like, oh my God, it's so much bigger.
Jump that high.
That was amazing. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic, and you can find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where we're just finishing up the animated TV show, My Adventures with Superman on Max. So join us over there and talk to us about the whole show and the finale. And also, just as a reminder, you can follow the Legendary Ladies. We're on YouTube, where we are uploading our live streams. That's youtube.com/ at the Legendary Ladies. We're at the Legendary Ladies on Instagram. We're at legends_podcast on Twitter. And it's our Patreon is patreon.com/ the Legendary Ladies. And as a reminder at the end of the show too, we did this episode. We dedicated this to Pam, who was such a great listener, such a nice person. Every time that we got to meet her, and we hope that this helps a little bit. We feel really sad to find out that she's not with us anymore. So this one goes out to Pam.
but she brought us a lot of joy by getting us to watch this episode, and she brought us a lot of joy in general, and we celebrate joy and we celebrate life. So thank you so much, Pammy, for leaving us with some wonderful joy and honor, and we miss you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you always brought fun conversations to the chat as well. So I was already like thinking, if you were here, like what thoughts would you have had with our differences of
I feel like she would have been like just mortified that like I was the only one who watched more than the pilot.
And she would be deeply offended that, Kat, you're not going to give it a try
because
of how much queer is in it.
But yeah, I'm sure she'd be like, no, that feels right.
Yeah.
So until next time, stay legendary.